last but not least, keynote speaker, His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Shahid Amin Khan. Thank you.
Yes, of course, Cecile, thank you very much. Now I have the pleasure and honor to introduce the world chairman and ambassador at the large International Human Rights Commission, Islamabad, Pakistan. So Dr. Muhammad Shahid Amin Khan is a former advisor to the Prime Minister of Pakistan with the status of Federal Minister. He's the fourth world chairman in the International Human Rights Commission, the first Muslim nation elected from the members in the history of IHRC. His terms of service is for 10 years that started on February 24 in 1996, which extended by the General Assembly for the second term on March 21 on 2006. He's also the chairman of World Peace Mission Organization, elected by the board of directors in its first ever meeting held in Dubai on December of 2001. Dr. Khan was born in Lahore, Pakistan on June 1966. He studied at the Central Model School, Lahore, and complete his graduation from the Government College, Lahore, Pakistan in 1984. He did postgraduate studies in journalism in the Punjab University in Pakistan. Dr. Khan did a PhD in international law in 1996 and doctorate in philosophy in 2011. So please welcome, and I'm very honored to introduce you, Dr. Muhammad Shahid Amin Khan.
Thank you very much, dear moderator, Marinian. Thank you very much, Madam Cecilia. I would start saying before going to my speech, which is written by my staff for 12 pages, our director, Kobla, told me that we have to conclude it in 12 minutes. I will skip many things out of this written speech because I'm used to speak without a written speech. But unfortunately, today is a Human Rights Day, and there are so many things which has to be elaborated on this August forum. First of all, the International Human Rights Commission as an intergovernmental organization is due to announce today the international awards and recognition for the personalities, those who are serving for the human rights, world peace, environment, youth development, women empowerment. So I will take this floor and advantage of this floor to say that the four of the peoples, those who are nominated by the award committees, are participating in this August forum. The first of all, my brother and inspiring leader, Mr. Vasu Gondan, a founder of the Global Peace, human rights activist, advocate, and mediator of a peace. He's been awarded, nominated for his long life service for the human rights and world peace with the International Peace Award on behalf of the International Human Rights Commission, which will be given to him in a very colorful ceremony between the World Human Rights Summit on between the 22 to 24th of April in United Nations headquarters, Geneva. Second, Mr. Kobla Osmani, the director of the Global Peace with the International Medal of Honor. Third, the Italian youth delegates to the United Nations, Golia Terriello, she is also here, and the fourth, environmentalist and climate advocate, Rodrigo Souza. So these four are already presented here, and I took this August forum to announce that these four are awarded the International Human Rights Award and the Medal of Honor on their services to bring the globe together and the people together for the maintaining peace and human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guest and delegate, Mr. President, it is an honor for me to address the annual forum on the human rights organized by the Global Peace Organization to mark the importance of the World Human Rights Day 2022. International Human Rights Day falls on the 10th December each year. It marks the occasion on the 10th December 1948 when the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a first instrument to respect the human rights across the world. The declaration emerged from the wreckage and unthinkable horror of the Second World War. It sought to rekindle human dignity, which had been gravely debased in the preceding of 10 years. The nations of the world intended it to be the cornerstone of the future principle of the international human rights law, which would be developed in order to prevent and restore the terribles of event which has been recently in our minds. We now know that these treaties could not prevent other great violations. Nonetheless, international human rights law has provided us with the detailed standard against which we can measures conduct. I will start from here on the words of Frederick Douglass, a famous human rights advocate in America, said 150 years ago, where justice is denied, where ignorance prevails, and where one class is made feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither persons nor property will be safe. It is also valuable to reflect on the famous words of the Eleanor Roosevelt, whose tireless work led the Universal Declaration of Human Rights come its existence. Where after all, do universal human rights begin in small places, close to home, so close and small that they cannot be seen on any map of the world. Yet they are the word of an individual person, such as the place where every man and woman and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, and equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have title meaning anywhere. Without concerned citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the large world. Mr. President, there are not a recent invention. These are not recent inventions. Ideas about the rights and responsibilities have been an important part of all societies throughout the history since the end of the Second World War. There has been a united effort by the nations of the world to decide what rights belong to the all peoples and how they can best be promoted and protected. Throughout the history, concepts of the ethical behavior, justice, and human dignity have been important in the development of the human society. These ideas can be traced back to the ancient civilization of Babylon, China, and India. They contributed to the laws of a Greek and Roman society and are central to the Buddhist, Christian, Confucian, Hindu, Islamic, and Jewish teaching. Every person has the dignity and value. One of the ways that we recognize the fundamental worth of every person is by acknowledging and respecting their human rights. Human rights are a set of the principles concerned with the equality and fairness. These recognize our freedoms to make choice about our lives and to develop our potential as a human being. They are about living a life free from fear, harassment, or discrimination and inequality. Human rights can be broadly defined as a number of basic rights that people from around the world have agreed are essential. These include the right to life, the right to fair trial, freedom from torture and other cruel and inhuman treatment, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the rights to health, education, and adequate standard of living. These human rights are the same for all people everywhere, men and women, young and old, rich and poor, regardless of our background, where we live, what we think, or what we believe. This is what makes human rights universal. Mr. President, I always address the denial on the state of human rights by the almost all countries at every time. I spoke on the length of cruelty and moral bankruptcy of the violent extremists. LSD horrors they participate continue daily, and we condemn their conduct daily. And yet, if we are not careful, if we are not completely principled and cunning in our collective attempt to define them, we will unwittingly and unexcusably be advancing their interest. How we define the opening chapter of this already agitated country, contrarily dependent heavily on us, not becoming like them. For us, international humanitarian law and international human rights law cannot be terrified with or circumspect, but must be fully observed. Therefore, and without dimensioning our continuing rejection of terrorism, in this statement on the broad conduct of the state regarding their obligation to uphold the human rights. It has been 70 years since the Great Charter of the United Nations been drawn in the international humanitarian law. And since then, the states have no written and agreed to a range of strong international treaties to establish in binding law the legal principle of the human rights. We are celebrating 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But they are distillation of the all human experience, all the warnings and screams of our combined human history. In this forum today, all of my fellow distinguished speakers and participants will make specific and precise contribution to the humanity, all by our commitment to adhere to the Universal Charter and the United Nations Charter of Human Rights. I believe to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of a human person, in the equal rights of men and women, and the nation large and small, and to establish conditions under which justice and respect for the obligation arising from the treaty and other source of international law can be maintained, and to promote social progress and better standards of a life in larger freedom by putting aside our political ambitions and differences. And yet, with alarming regularity, human rights are disregarded and violated sometimes to a shocking degree. My fellow brother Vasu has mentioned that the world is on the brink of the Third World War, divided into the two blocks, one led by the United States of America and the NATO allies, and the second, Russia, China, and Iran, and so all the others. This is why it's happening. It's happening because that the international obligation of the United Nations are not fulfilled by any member of the state. We are not carrying the system of justice within the nations. When the Palestinians will crying for their freedom and end of oppression, when the Yemen, Afghanistan, Libya, and Syria, we left with no choice other than the civil war, when the justice will prevail for only superpowers, when almighty powers need to recognize their obligations, we cannot achieve the peace. We cannot achieve the respect of human dignity and human rights. we will bring this world on the verge of collapse. And it is a time that everybody should think. I always said that the leaders thinks about the future generations, and politicians thinks just for win their next general election. This is what is a cause of a grave and mass human rights violation. We cannot achieve the peace, we cannot achieve the respect and dignity of the human rights, we cannot achieve, I can mention it here, at the COP28, COP27, what had happened? It is the clear picture for us where human rights stands, for what human rights stands. When the powerful countries and powerful corporations and powerful elites undermine the advocacy of the young generation, they want to diminish the advocacy and voice of the people, then there is no justice. And without the justice, we cannot achieve the respect of the human rights and enforcement of the international treaties, which obligatory saying to the states to achieve and respect the laws, enact the laws into their constitutions. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellency President, civil disobedience, where it is terrorism or rights, such as we have recently seen in many parts of the world, will not be eradicated by the further operations. We must give more attention to the understanding how the communities have failed these peoples and address their concern, including their sense of injustice. It is of the utmost importance that the human rights of those who comes into conflict with the government policies and even with the laws of their country have their human rights respected. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end, I will say, while what will become of us, of our world, if we ignore principle of the international human rights law, can we be so stupid as to repeat sense from the 12th centuries? We are living in 21st century. We are not living in 12th century. Punctured as it was by such awful inhumanity, you must not make it so. This is principally your burden and ours. Together, if we succeed in turning the corner, in improving our global conditions, we can then say the screams of history and of the millions upon millions of victims have been heard. Finally, let us make it the universality of the human rights as respected as the powers. Greedy politicians are respected in their own rights and obligations. Thank you very much. And I'm sure that I concluded it within the 12 minutes. The time is yours. Congratulations, Brother Vasu, for being nominated by the International Human Rights Commission on International Peace and Human Rights Awards on your tireless efforts in bringing the young generation together at the world platform. I wish that in my life I should see that the global peace is a global organization with the 5 million peoples in the years ahead. God bless you, God bless unity, and God bless all of you. Thank you very much.